Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to workshop number 4. And today's workshop is about booking. So live performances and the sort. If this is your first time coming to an Afrowaveto workshop, I'll just kind of give you a background on, what we do, who we are. So Afrowaveto was started by Lexicon, who is an artist from Toronto. We are led by artists, for artists, and basically Afrowaveto was started to fill a void that we saw in the Canadian music industry. And that was, we were hearing a lot of sounds that were derived from Afrobeats, and we were hearing a lot of Soca, a lot of reggae and dancehall, but we weren't seeing that representation in workshops. We weren't seeing that representation in webinars like this. And we kind of noticed that a lot of the artists that were within those genres weren't getting the same access to resources and other things that could be beneficial to their growth. So that's how Afrowaveto came about. I'm your host for this workshop series. My name is Karis. I am a singer, songwriter, and music producer. My genre is reggae soul, if you're interested in that. I started out primarily on the creative side of things, and then kind of went into music business. I went to study music management at Harris Institute, and I really enjoyed that. I went to learn how to manage myself better as an artist, but actually ended up really loving the business side of things. So after that, did a bunch of music business jobs, and now I'm director of operations at Afrowaveto, and I'm hosting these workshops for you. So today we have Tao from Blue Crane Agency. Got it right. um,
Totally.
she's gonna be just giving us some insight into this side of the industry, into booking, talking to us about her experience in the industry as a booking agent, and just kind of helping us all, include myself, as emerging artists to better understand that area of the industry. So I'll hand it over to Tao, let her introduce herself to you.
Thank you, Karis. I think I got that right. Thanks so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to chat in this intimate webinar. So yeah, I'm originally from Vancouver. I started out in West Coast pop music with Carly Rae Jepsen's Call Me Maybe phenomena in like 2012 when she blew up, and she's from Vancouver, so we're both from the same city, and I worked for a West Coast pop record label out there, and then I moved onto Universal Music Canada when I moved to Toronto for business school, and worked in like the legal and business affairs department there, which was really, really helpful to study contracts, study fine print, study licenses, all the things that have really helped me to start my own business. After that, I had like worked in label and management, sync and publishing for I think 5 years by that point, and the only side I hadn't touched was live, and that was like the side I was most intrigued by, even from my event production days in high school, just being on student council and producing film festivals at my high school or art mural projects or whatever events that I love to do with the council there, really carried me forth to really why I picked it live in concerts to working currently. So I applied and worked at an American booking agency called Billions at the time. They were based in Chicago. They repped at the time Wu-Tang, Bonnie Bear, Vampire Weekend, St. Vincent, and then I was helping booking the roster of Charlotte Day Wilson, Cold Specs, Shad, Wolf Parade, Timber Timber, Basha Bulat. So a lot of, eclectic and different types of artists. And then, I went to from that, working for other folks, wanting to do my own venture. And that's Blue Crane Agency, which was birthed in the spring of 2018 and had it for about 23 months before the pandemic hit. So really only now, I would say, we're laying down the brickwork and the foundations to sort of propel forward, doing some strategic planning for the future. It's been, a crazy time of, establishing my own business, and then getting pregnant, having my first baby, my first child, a week before the March original lockdown, and then sort of coming out of that maternity leave and coming back to Blue Crane and figuring out the next steps. So Blue Crane was founded with a roster. It was DJ Indian from Tribe Called Red, Zaki Ibrahim, Kelly Techness, Narcy, onto just a whole bunch of different acts. Today we have recent signings, Clerel, who is Cameroon francophone, now based in Montreal. We just had a Montreal Jazz Festival big outdoor show 2 weekends ago, which was super successful to thousands of people, still reduced capacity, but Loren is another folk artist, signing in Montreal. I just love Montreal and like all the music that comes out of that city. So a lot of my roster comes from there. Shay Lia is another big artist that we've worked with for the last few years, who's East African, Djibouti, francophone as well. Eclectic taste. We book Lucala, Lisa, Toronto R&B singers as well, and you can see on our website all the different stuff we do. So, I think that is a good lengthy intro.
Thank you. Just a disclaimer before we continue, because I realized I didn't say this before we jump into it. Just for all the participants, we will be having this session recorded, just like all the other workshops, and it'll be up on our website for you to see or listen to afterwards. And then also, if you have any questions, please don't hold back. You can put them in the Q&A tab. There's a designated Q&A tab. It's just easier for me to track rather than shooting them in the chat and then we have to keep scrolling. If we see a question that we are currently addressing based on what we're talking about, then we'll get to it. If it's something that I think could be pushed to the last 15 minutes when we'll have a designated Q&A area, then we'll address it there. But don't worry, once you've sent it through, I've seen it. And then we'll address it after. Okay, so just to jump into it, on the topic of Blue Crane, why did you choose the name Blue Crane? Like, what is the story behind that?
Yeah, totally. I think I was just, it's a nod to my East Asian roots. So I'm, Hong Kong, Chinese Canadian, and Hong Kong Chinese are my roots. And cranes are really big in Chinese pottery, calligraphy, poetry. So it's a nod. Crane, cool symbol like a bird, and blue, just gender neutral color. I love red, so it was going to be red crane, but I just wanted to do like a more gender neutral color, and I like the aqua that I picked. So it's 80% of our roster, I would say 90% of our roster is made up of folks from diaspora, immigrant culture and roots. So I think the name just represents what we stand for, which is people with interesting stories, often from other places that have come.
I remember when you just launched, I think I was finishing up Harris. And we're all scurrying to find industry jobs. So we were all like on top of everything that launched. And I remember when it came out, I was like, why Blue Crane? So I've been wanting to ask that question for like 3 years.
Oh, nice. Oh my God. I'm glad we're chatting about it. Yeah.
To hear the story behind that. So I think this question straight out the gate, it's something that I hear artists ask a lot about so many other members on their team as well. When do you think an artist should start to look for a booking agent to join their team?
Number one, when you hate booking shows yourself and are getting big enough that you're selling out 200 tickets in your hometown, perhaps. You're getting requests from, say you live in Toronto, you're getting a request from Ottawa promoters, Montreal promoters, any sort of secondary, tertiary markets around Toronto, and you hate doing the work, then that might be a valuable new addition to your team, if you can get signed. And but really, you know, the nuts and bolts of when you're ready to also work with an agent, not just be signed, but work with, you know, a team member from the live space is really, you got to have your riders ready. So your tech rider, you know, usually a one-pager PDF of your stage plot, how your band looks like on stage, where your guitar player stands, where your keyboardist stands, all your inputs, outputs. Just having that rider actually helps you get deals, because if a promoter is interested in your sound, and you can send them a tech rider to be like, I have 4 on stage, I have 2 dancers in the background, what's your budget? That actually can propel the deal negotiations a lot quicker, if they can see like how much it costs to put you on stage, if it's a solo act as opposed to a full band. So having riders is like I think like a really valuable asset at the beginning, you know, as valuable as your EPK or highlight reel. And then the other piece is, when you have travel arranged, like if you have a huge band with dancers, like you need to have a touring band. Like if your agent books you or wants to book you or gets an inquiry about your band, but you don't have ability to take your crew from point A to point B, then it's hard to work with an agent sometimes, because if you can get an agent on your side and excited about your set, they're going to pitch it and push it everywhere. So you need to be ready with logistics, really. And, you know, obviously travel is a very tough thing these days. And, you know, we're far away from, I think, like full on routed tour band life and culture still. Flights is kind of short haul flights even. It's helpful to have touring grants for that, if you can get help with those costs. Those are kind of the parts.
And for those who were in our grants workshop, you know that we talked a lot about that with factors, so you can always go back to that workshop in terms of touring grants, just as a helpful note to you. So Tao, what does your role look like when you are working with an artist? Because I know, especially for independent artists, there's a lot of like, oh, I do this, my manager does this, there can be blurred lines. So just so that, you know, we don't take for granted that everyone understands what booking looks like or what the agent is responsible for, could you just kind of give us some clarity on what your responsibilities would be if you were working with an artist?
Okay, so agent's responsibility is to handle all the touring and performance engagements of a particular artist. So if you get a request from, say, University of Western to do like a $500 campus show, like that would go to your agent, and like we would handle that. We would negotiate the fee. We would contract the performance, chase a deposit for you. You know, help you figure out advancing the show. We can talk about show advancing in another section if you'd like, but figure out sort of your basic production backline, advancing for that particular performance, get you paid, get a deposit, get you paid also after the gig is done. That's like a typical sort of mini look at like one show. Agents will route full 10 to 15 to 20 date tours for you as well. So we stitch together routings. Because I learned my touring knowledge from an American agency. I say routing, not routing. So we're responsible for routing a whole tour. So we have to be on Google Maps all the time. We have to understand geography. We have to understand how many hours it takes you to get from sound check in Montreal to shows on at 7:00, curfews at say midnight, you get home at 1. We need to like route you and your band from like that show to the next day to the next city. So it's a lot of logistics. I love traveling and I love discovering new venues, old venues, historic venues, cool new clubs in all corners of the world. We mostly book in North America. And generally you want an agent in every territory that you're doing well in. So like if you're having streams and plays and looks in say Europe, you want to have a European agent for that. So mostly agents are divided by territory. And the work is also divided in territory because we really understand the venues and the promoters and the bookers and the event planners in that particular territory. And then we'll route full tours through big cities, small cities, depending where you're touring. So we're stitching together all those logistics, all those deals, with each promoter in each city that you go. Then after the tour is done, we settle up profit and loss for the whole tour, pay out the artist, and then we do that all over again for your next album release. So it's mostly pegged to album release cycles, EP release cycles, and then
So what does that look like because I didn't even like register the having different booking agents depending on, the places that you're doing the best. So what does that look like? Like if I'm an artist, I want to do a global tour. Is it one booking agent that would set that all up, or is it that the booking agents in the different places would be working to set that up? What does that look like with multiple?
Yeah, if you're like selling good numbers in a whole bunch of different territories, you're probably best to find, like if you're doing really well in Japan and China and Korea, you should get an Asian booking agent or someone who has ties to a local Asian booking agent on the ground. Generally, when you're starting out, when you're emerging, you and your manager, if you have a manager helping you, will book everything for you. They'll book you your show in Toronto and they'll book you your show in Tokyo. Just because you're emerging, say you're at that level where you're showcasing, it's your first time playing different territories. But as you grow, as you sell out sort of local club rooms at 150 capacity, 200 capacity, and you grow, then, and there's demand, then agents in other territories might approach you. But it's according to demand, and really like how much capacity you have also to pay out commission to agents as well. So some artists like love booking their own shows and they're just road dogs and they understand advancing and traveling and they're good at driving between cities and they just like take care of all their own booking. So it really depends on what you're good at, what you want to do too.
Do you as an agent work, I asked this because when you were describing everything, it kind of reminded me of a tour management assignment that I had to do. So basically it's like this artist and we had to figure out how long it takes for him to get to his hotel and sound check and then to the city where he's performing and all this stuff. And then to make it fun, and teacher was like, yeah, but imagine that he's not 30, now he's like 60. How does that change? So do you work closely with tour managers, for example, or is it that you just communicate with the artist and then the artist has their own communication with the tour manager? How does
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. We will talk to tour managers or like TMs.
Okay.
TM, tour manager, PM, production manager is usually on the venue side. We'll have the PM, and on the artist side, we'll have the TM, which is the tour manager that obviously is carried crew with the artist. But basically, totally. We talk to tour managers all the time. We have to, we send them, you know, when we book a show, say we book like 5 shows at one time for say next summer, 2022, that itinerary will go to the tour manager. The tour manager will print it out. They'll have it in the tour van with them all day. They'll be advancing shows every day in each different city. They'll be settling the shows at the end of the night. And so they're critical in ways that they are the ones who we get the settlement reports from at the end of each night or at the end of the tour often. And yeah, sometimes they'll, you know, as an artist, they'll work directly with management and we'll get it from the manager instead of the tour manager. But I don't know, often when sometimes the tour manager is like also the driver. So if they're stuck, like one time I was booking a tour through, I think they were driving through Wisconsin or Ohio somewhere. And like, cause I've booked a lot in the States as well, working for an American agency, like their car broke down on the road. Like I get a call from the tour manager who's often driving. So a lot of logistical stuff you will have to coordinate through them.
Okay, thank you. I see that we have 2 questions. Just because this is a shorter workshop, I think it may be better if we just save all the questions for last. So I see your question. I promise we're gonna get to it. Just give us a second. We'll get through this part and then we'll just try to tackle all of them at the end, just because I know it's a shorter workshop. So just off of that, how has the pandemic affected your job? Like all of this logistics stuff that you have to work out, communicating with artists and tour managers, what does that look like in 2021?
Yeah, so the pandemic obviously decimated our industry. It decimated live, and you know we were the first to go. We'll probably be one of the last to come back, just because we rely on gatherings and we rely on the congregation of people paying for ticket sales. So in 2021 now, you know, I think in Canada, we've had a lot of grants on the music development side, on the business development side, on like really helping companies and organizations stay alive. So that's great in terms of from the Canadian government. Now in 2021, people are booking for mostly summer in 2022, some spring shows as well. Some like winter live streams and last minute events that people can kind of start producing as capacity numbers increase. You know, Quebec just announced like a capacity increase a couple of days ago. So like I had a show at La Sala Rosa in Montreal that just, you know, got bumped up slightly. I think it was like 92 cap only a week ago, and now we can do over like almost 150, I think, per show. So it's slow but surely. I think in, you know, the States and Europe, but mostly the States were really quick to open just because their vaccination programs were just so robust at the beginning. Delta has got agents down. Like I have some American agent colleagues that are rebooking their tours for the 4th time because of the Delta variant. So that's frustrating. So I think in the States, it's been like really up and down and like kind of just wacky. Whereas like Canada's vaccination programs were much more slow and steady. So like, I think everyone was in Canada, at least was pushing things to 2022 from the beginning and just being like more, low risk about things. So everyone's kind of booking towards next year. Calendars are being booked into 2023 as well. So we're kind of just moving forward, trying to just get to next summer kind of thing.
Is your calendar like in booking usually like that? What is like how far out or how close would you book a show for an artist?
It depends on the artist demand. Obviously, if you're booking someone like I helped, for example, like bring No Name to Billions at A&R, like someone like a big rapper like that would be she probably booked two years out, even 3 years. I wouldn't be surprised now with the pandemic. But if you're an emerging band, you kind of just like take the deals that you can get in order to grow, especially during the pandemic. So if you're an emerging act, it could be any time this year or into next year. So
I think my next question kind of answers Flavia's question here about getting signed to your agency. She said in the chat. What do you look for in an artist? So this was one of the questions that we posted to our artist managers last year. I was very interested to hear, just because we had two managers. We had Troy Harmon from X10, and then we had Katrina Lopez. So we kind of heard their preferences and, just based on the genres and stuff that we do. And it was really interesting to kind of hear, who they prefer to work with. So as an agent, are there particular things that you look for in an artist before agreeing to work with them? Anything that kind of sticks out to you as non-negotiables or important?
Yeah, totally. It's just like authenticity on stage and what was I going to say? Like, ability to like having an authentic, genuine set that like, if I'm standing at the back of the room, you can kind of see fans and audience members like really be captivated and engaged by you on stage. I think that energy and that connection is like, you can tell, when you're really, when a particular artist is connecting with their audiences, whether it's like a song break and they're talking or in the middle of a song or at the end of a song. Like it's a vibe, it's an energy. And it's, I find as an agent, I really look for that because that's really where we can do good work together is like, if I can see that you're captivating or connecting with audiences in your local city, like that is a show that I want to bring to other cities and to other territories, right? And I think aside from sort of falling in love with the set from like a business and like a data numbers perspective is like, it doesn't really matter if you have like 4 million streams on Spotify on a song. Like if I can't fall in love with your set, your live set, then we can't work together. Like I can't pitch your show. So I think that's like the really key thing is that there's like to know what kind of artist you are, and like to develop your live set if that's not your strong point. Because there's so many different types of artists. There's like studio artists, there's like musicians who are just like have amazing cred, cult cred amongst their sort of like jazz student colleagues at like Humber College Jazz or whatever, that has like become like, I really feel like a band like Hiatus Coyote, R&B band is like, they're such like a musician kind of like band, where they just like have so much incredible credibility amongst real players of jazz and R&B. So like they've kind of built their audience on that. Which is interesting. So I think just like knowing what your live set is about, what types of audiences you connect with, and also, just something that's what I do for a living. Like I sell shows for a living. So like I fall in love with shows and I sell them, and like I just love my job for that because like I'm good at it.
That is worth it.
Yeah, and
so you have to do for a living, so you might as well love it.
Totally. So it's like, it sounds kind of ridiculous that I just like, my life is kind of committed to this like 60-minute set. Like generally headline sets are 60 to 75 minutes, support acts and support slots are 30 to 45 minutes. So I think, just being committed to selling that narrative, that experience for 30 minutes or for 60 minutes, whoever is on stage, I need to sort of be able to feel connected to it and work it in a way that that helps you in your touring business, right? So
on the flip side, because I know like majority of the persons that are in our workshop are independent artists.
Mhm.
Usually all our workshops are kind of like that. So what should independent artists or emerging artists look out for when looking for an agent? Are there things you would be like, stay away from, or that'd be a good agent? What are the recommendations in terms of looking for an agent?
Just ultimately someone who gets your music. You know, you can get signed to the biggest agency in the world with just a personality of an agent that you might just not connect or get along with, or who doesn't really understand your music. Like, to me, that's not really the goal in developing a long-term and lasting career. So I think trying to look for that genuine commitment to like your art and where you're going with your art. And then what are you looking an agent? I don't know. I had another thing I wanted to talk about, but it just slipped my mind. Yeah, your question was just like how.
Like, what are some of the things that you should look for in a good agent, or someone that you could trust with booking shows for you?
Yeah. I would say that that's the big one, is that a lot of people want to sign with just like the biggest agency that they can put them on a support tour, say with like Cautious Clay or someone like big, you know, and you know, say you do 5 support dates at $250 with a huge headline act, and then because say that one big headline act is also at the agency, so it's easy to pitch and set that up, but then they don't get any shows for you after that fact. So, you know, you want to look for longevity and not someone who just will give you like the flashy one big support tour and then forget about you after, is like one caution, or like one thing I've seen in the industry. Yeah.
Sounds good. I hope everyone's taking notes for when that comes along. What is the, or how does an agent get paid? And is it a commission, and how is that negotiated? What does that process look like once you've decided to work with an artist, and you've proceeded to book shows for them?
Yeah, so we work off commission, and that's why it's a pretty competitive industry. There's also not a lot of contracts, so a lot of them are handshake deals. So your agent, if you sort of get to this point where you get signed, it's like it's usually like the agent is obsessed with your music because, you know, they haven't signed a contract with you, and you could change your agent tomorrow or at the flip of a coin, or at any moment. Like, it's pretty precarious for agents and how they make their money. So it's a really tough business. Yeah. So it's commission. It's usually 10 to 15% is the industry standard. And yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this question, I think it's one of my favorite, just because it's been so interesting. So everyone we've had on for workshops this year, at least, have been people identify as minorities, people of color. We worked really hard, very hard this year to try to keep that consistency for this series for 2021. So my question is, are there challenges that you face because of the artists that you've chosen to represent? So female artists, queer artists, artists of color, is there any challenge that you face in your area of the industry?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I'm doing it. Cause like there's so many barriers and there's so many challenges, and I just like want to break them all down. There's just so much work to be done. And yeah, just tons of sexism, tons of racism, tons of ableism in the industry. And you know, how do you address that, you know, when you're an emerging musician confronted with all those layers on stage, in the green room, backstage, all the stuff that people have to deal with. So yeah, I think the biggest challenge from an agent perspective is tokenizing acts, you know, people who want to come and book and have a certain idea of what Caribbean music is, have a certain idea of what Indigenous music is, have a certain idea of what East Asian music is. Like, it's pretty monolithic to them. And often, you know, I had one negative scenario where someone wanted to book an Indigenous artist of mine, and you know, the deal fell through in the end because they wanted a cultural set. To me, that's like they wanted a dancer to come with like a headdress while my Indigenous DJ plays. And it's like, how insulting is that, first of all, to have like a booker name what a cultural set is as an outsider, and also to let go of the deal because it wasn't cultural enough. So yeah, I deal with that stuff all the time. And it's like, I don't want my artists hearing about that anymore. So I just want to be the agent, like the go-between, because like that's just, I don't know, that's just really hard stuff to hear and deal with from artist perspectives. So I, you know, if I can help filter out those conversations to sort of negotiate and let people know like what's appropriate and not in the booking space, like that, I would love that, you know. And I just try to do that, but they're hard conversations to have. So
yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I remember when I was growing up, I would always hear about art mimicking life. And then having to be an independent artist, I definitely saw that, because even, especially being a Jamaican, I feel like and I think other persons of, you know, visible minorities can definitely relate to like mainstream having this story of what you're supposed to look like or sound like or sing like if you're from Jamaica, or, you know, if you're from any other Caribbean island, if you're from anywhere in Asia. It's like there's been this media and movie image that's kind of been portrayed. And so now you're just trying to do your job as an artist or as an agent, and then these stereotypes kind of, you know, seep in. I remember trying to set up a show. I think I was going to Harris at the time. So it was just through me, no manager, no agent, nothing. And I told them that I do reggae soul. So a lot of people don't really understand what that sounds like, what it looks like, but they knew I was Jamaican, and so they expected that it was going to be more reggae than soul. So that ended up being a whole confusing experience. In the end, the performance fell through because I'm kind of one of those persons, and I know a lot of artists are like this, where if the spirit, the energy is just not right, it just can't happen. So it's interesting to hear you know, give that story, because for me, it's kind of like, oh, I guess this happens on a small scale, but to also hear it actually happening with the booking agent, it's like, you know, the struggle that it goes up the ladder. And so that's kind of insightful for me to hear as well, because it's definitely true that there are all these stereotypes and stories around what a cultural set is supposed to look like, or what an Indigenous artist or Black artist or Jamaican artist is supposed to sound like. So, you know, thank you for sharing that. So it was really interesting kind of to hear it from your perspective as well, you know.
Totally. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that story. And, you know, just to sort of tie that point together is that like agents do the exact same thing as artists in terms of our pitches, in terms of like trying to talk up and get into festivals. Like we do that exact same work. We just probably like it a lot better than like other folks, because like most people like hate negotiating deals and dealing with tour logistics. So but in terms of like the work, like it's actually this exact same work, and that sort of like leads into one of the questions I think we got about like pitches and stuff. But the pitches to promoters. So yeah.
We'll get into questions soon. Just for fun one to kind of lead into a Q&A. What has been your most rewarding, your best moment as a booking agent so far?
Oh, I think That's like a really hard one, but I think doing New Year's shows, I like hate New Year's. I started to love New Year's when I started becoming an agent, because just doing like, I don't know, 30,000 attendee shows at like Nathan Phillips Square in Toronto, and you know, 10 to 15,000 people showing up to see my artist at like Celebration Square in Mississauga for like Saga New Year's. Like, I think just those big shows on like big days that used to hate, but like you get to work on them now. And I find like, I don't know, I get a lot of like joy out of obviously my work identity and what I do at Blue Crane. So it's like, I think parlaying that and like having a new experience to shows on hard days is cool.
well, I'm kind of similar in terms of I don't hate New Year's. I truly love it. I'm one of those persons who will just like use it as a chance to start over. I guess a lot of people do. If I want to start over before that, I'll use my birthday as an excuse. But Christmas gets me. I love Christmas. I love, you know, especially being from a Caribbean island, like they make Christmas celebrations to like a whole new level. But then I worked in retail for the Christmas season like when I just started working, and we listened to the same Christmas songs over and over for 8 hours, and I just couldn't. I don't want to hear another carol. I don't want to hear another Christmas song. I heard All I Want for Christmas by Mariah Carey like over and over. It changed so much for me. So I guess the flip side in the New Year's.
That's Mariah's big royalty check of the year every year. Yeah.
So we are actually, for everyone who came in after I did the intro, and you probably didn't notice the little change on the flyer. So this workshop actually goes to 7. Sorry, checking my time difference. So we're actually going to go into questions right now, just so we can get everybody's questions in this last 10 minutes that we have.
Sure.
I'll just go from top and work to the last one. So Anika, I hope I said your name right. Do booking agents help you get more gigs? I think we kind of touched on that. That's kind of the idea. Hopefully your booking agent is helping you get more gigs. I don't know if you wanted to kind of add anything.
Like that's our job. I guess they might not be a good agent, or the agent that you want if you're not seeing gigs from them. They want to, they help getting you different types of gigs too. It's not just the number of gigs, it's like the types of spaces you want to play in, and the gigs that you want to play. So.
And then Flavia had asked, how do you find good agents in each territory? I guess that's when we were talking about having multiple agents. Where would you start?
I would start at looking at your favorite musicians' Facebook about pages and seeing who reps them. So say you love like Ravina in the UK, and you're doing more touring in the UK, you're doing well your streams are doing well in the UK. Check out who her booking agent is. And often that booking agent will understand that space that you want to play in and grow in. Most booking agents, they're listed on artist websites or still Facebook about pages. It's kind of clunky, but I find Facebook about pages is kind of, you get them more on there than Instagram and Twitter, just because you can write more info in there. So that's a helpful one.
It's so interesting having to find members of an artist team. I think it's been made so difficult now. It's kind of like it's the 6 degrees of separation. You have to know someone, so it's kind of good to get those tips as to where we can look as well, because I know even trying to find that for myself has been super difficult.
Totally. And like, and I think agency life in the world is also just really difficult and not transparent because there's so few agents and so few agencies. And it's, you know, CAA, for example, one of the big Hollywood agencies just bought ICM, which is also a massive agency. So the monopolization of agencies and corporate buying has been like pretty hard. There's only like, 4 or 5 agencies in Canada. So it's a very small space, and that's why it's hard to like,
Alrighty. From Mel, what goes into preparing your pitch to promoters to get your artist booked for a show?
Okay, so my pitch is like a little paragraph. It's name of the band, little thumbnail photo, press photo, 1. That's it. A description of more of like a touring bio, probably about like 4 or 5 sentences, not more than that. You could say like coming off Europe promo tour 2018, you know, talk about genre of music, where you've played like big, you know, if you played with a big headliner, quote that. If you played at big festivals, quote that. Say one thing about when your last release came out. Maybe one sort of boasty stat, you know, over 1 mil combined streams on X platform. Combined streams is like the tip, is like, you don't have to, I know like everyone's an emerging artist, so it's so hard to sort of build stats really at this point, but you know, you can do combined streams over, you know, Spotify, Apple, whatever, combined platforms even. So, and then 1 quote maybe from a press outlet or a blog that puts you in a nice light, and include 1 sort of like live performance link, 1 maybe music video, and then just like your social links. That's it. Keep it short, keep it simple.
Wait, I was muted, sorry. So I was just saying it kind of sounds like an EPK. So I guess is it different from an EPK?
Yeah, EPK would be like a PDF attachment to the email. Yeah, and usually like that's like a 1 or 2 pager PDF of like a highlight reel, your big points. But a pitch from an agency perspective is like something you do in the email body. Right? Do it in like Microsoft Word or Google Sheets or something, but it's a separate paragraph with like a little thumbnail photo. Usually agencies will do that, from indie agencies to the main corporate ones. So
thank you. So Mel also said, do you book promo tours?
We don't actually. Usually management or label will book those. Yeah, just because there's usually not fees there or high fees for us to help negotiate. You know, promotional tours are usually gratis or free, or done for a specific reason for a tour. So yeah, mostly that comes from management and label.
Alrighty, so we usually do this at the end. Just for everyone who's, no problem, Mel, for anyone who hasn't been in previous workshops. So at the end, while people figure out if they have any more questions, we all just kind of throw our handles in so that we can network, even though we can't be in person. So I know that you guys have mine, most of you, but I'll just put it in here as well. And guys, just a disclaimer, please. I work at Afrowave, but I handle certain things. So I've had a bunch of participants that messaged me that you guys haven't responded to my submission and you haven't. I actually don't manage the submissions at all. This is kind of my project right now, more on the operations side. So I talk to people like Tao and try to set up workshops for you guys, and you know, the day-to-day stuff. Submissions, who handles submissions? So right now, we have like a general email. I will put that in here, afrowaveto.com. This is where you send your submissions for music. That could, sometimes it's Lex, sometimes it's an additional person that we bring on to the, Lex being lexicon, an additional person that we bring on to the team. So that's just kind of like where you send your submissions. So please don't bombard my DMs. I've gotten so many, like, you guys haven't responded to my submissions. If you have something to submit, you can just send it there, and then we'll look at it. And if we're booking for a showcase or so on, we'll reach out to you and let you know. I see that we have another question. I'd love to talk to Tao about being on her roster. What's the best way to go about that? I think that's something you would have to answer, Tao. There's just another question in the Q&A. So
okay, great. I see it now.
yeah.
Oh, I would love to. What's the best way to go about that? You can send it to inquiry@bluecrane.live. And here, I'm just gonna put it in here. Or it's on our website, which you can get from our Instagram. But yeah, basically like, yeah, send it there. Or like, you can try to Insta me. I'm not great with that, so maybe email is better. I had a baby during pandemic, so I'm just like, yeah, like just digging myself out of like email inbox for the last like year and a half. So yeah, but the inquiry email is like easier to organize, so feel free to send music there. And ultimately, I should say, like, ultimately, I need to, you know, we need to be able to go see live shows and see people perform, to see how you are on stage, to see if we connect with the music. So any sort of like live performance video links is always really helpful to include in there.
I think Flavor performed at Afrowave, so.
Oh, nice. Nice.
That should be up somewhere, Flavia, on our YouTube, if that helps you out. See, I'm helping you out here. But I think we have gotten to the end of the workshop. I don't usually like to go over, just to respect everyone's time. But thank you so much, Tao, for doing this, for agreeing to do this. I tell everyone that comes on the workshops all the time that it's been so hard, I think, to access people in the industry. In the music industry, it's kind of been a norm to just be inaccessible. And so I know there are a lot of emerging artists who like even message us and be like, thank you so much for getting someone to come and talk about this topic. So we really, really appreciate how quick you were to say yes to this and just following through and being here to talk to us about booking. I know I learned a lot because this is an area of the industry. I was just like, I'll just get somebody when I get there.
Fair, totally fair. Yeah.
To have that. So thank you so much for being on with us and for being so open about your experiences and just providing us with all of this insight. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to leave with everyone before I close out.
I don't think so. I just want to say thanks and appreciate you being a fan of Blue Crane too from so early on. So yeah, thanks for everyone who's in here and hope we can all meet each other proper in time.
Me too.
Before festival season next year. So.
Okay. All the participants as well. I always tell you the webinar is nothing without you. So I appreciate you coming on week after week. Next week, we'll be talking about music marketing, just how you get exposure for your music. So you don't want to miss that. The link will be in our bio as usual. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.